I'm Rebecca, 29 years old, and my wedding day should have been perfect. The lakeside venue sparkled in June sunlight, white roses everywhere, and Nathan looked handsome, waiting at the altar. Then, during the reception speeches, my sister Stephanie grabbed the microphone, smoothed her maid of honor dress, and announced, "I'm pregnant with Nathan's baby." The room fell silent. Champagne glasses froze midair. I stood there in my $1,000 gown while my world collapsed publicly. But here's what nobody expected. I smiled. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stay for a twist that changed everything. Growing up with Stephanie wasn't easy. Despite being only 3 years younger than me, she always knew how to command attention in ways I couldn't. While I meticulously followed rules and sought validation through academic achievements, Stephanie broke every rule and was forgiven instantly. Our childhood home in suburban Michigan became the stage for our contrasting personalities. Rebecca's our responsible one, my mother would say proudly when I brought home straight A's. But when Stephanie came home with mediocre grades and a charming story about helping a friend, she'd receive the same proud smile. The pattern became predictable. I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. Despite this dynamic, I loved my sister. We shared secrets in our matching twin beds, whispered about crushes, and defended each other against neighborhood bullies. There was an unspoken understanding between us. I would be the stable one, and she would be the wild spirit. This balance worked until we reached adulthood. After graduating with a business degree, I secured a position at Marshall Marketing, quickly rising through the ranks to become one of their youngest executives. My life settled into a comfortable routine of client meetings, professional development, and occasional dinner dates that went nowhere. Meanwhile, Stephanie floated between jobs, bartending, retail management, yoga instruction, changing careers as often as she changed boyfriends. "You need to live a little, Becca," she'd tell me during our monthly sister brunches. "All work and no play makes for a dull obituary." Then came the Chicago Marketing Conference that changed everything. Standing by the coffee station during a networking break, I locked eyes with Nathan Wilson, a digital strategy director from a partner agency. Tall with kind brown eyes and an easy laugh, he approached me with 2 coffees. "I noticed you take yours black," he said, handing me a cup.
"I'm not done."
"Your presentation on consumer engagement was brilliant." Unlike my previous dates, conversations with Nathan flowed effortlessly. We shared similar ambitions and values, but complemented each other's differences. Where I was structured and analytical, he was creative and intuitive. Our first date stretched from dinner to a midnight walk along Lake Michigan, where he admitted he'd been working up the courage to talk to me all day at the conference. "There's something about you," he said. "You're different from anyone I've ever met." After 6 months of dating, I introduced Nathan to my family over Thanksgiving dinner. My parents welcomed him immediately, almost too enthusiastically. Dad pulled out his expensive whiskey, and Mom showed him my embarrassing childhood photos without the usual new boyfriend probation period. Stephanie arrived late, making her typical dramatic entrance in a tight red dress despite our family's tradition of casual holiday attire. When she spotted Nathan, something flickered across her face. A look I'd seen before when we were teenagers, and I received the lead in the school play she wanted. But the expression vanished so quickly I convinced myself I'd imagined it. "So you're the famous Nathan," she said, kissing his cheek a beat too long. "Rebecca's been hiding you from us." Throughout dinner, Stephanie directed most of her questions and comments toward Nathan. She laughed too loudly at his jokes, touched his arm when speaking to him, and managed to mention her recent breakup multiple times. I noticed these behaviors, but dismissed them as Stephanie being her typical attention-seeking self. Nathan and I continued building our relationship. His software development firm offered him a promotion that would relocate him to Michigan, conveniently closer to me. We found an apartment midway between our offices, adopted a golden retriever named Cooper, and settled into domestic bliss. 2 years after we met, during a surprise weekend trip to Mackinac Island, Nathan proposed at sunset with a vintage oval diamond ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "You're everything I never knew I needed," he said, kneeling on one knee. "Will you marry me, Rebecca?" The wedding planning began immediately. We selected June 15th at Silver Lake Lodge, a rustic, elegant venue with panoramic water views. When I called Stephanie to ask her to be my maid of honor, she screamed with such excitement I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Of course. I've been waiting for you to ask," she gushed. "I've already started browsing bridesmaid dresses online." Her enthusiasm struck me as odd considering she'd previously mocked traditional weddings, but I welcomed her support. Little did I know this decision would set in motion events that would change the course of my life forever. Wedding planning brought out a side of Stephanie I'd never seen before. My typically non-committal sister suddenly had opinions about everything from invitation fonts to napkin colors. She volunteered to accompany me to every vendor meeting, dress fitting, and tasting session. While I initially appreciated her enthusiasm, something felt off about her intense involvement. "I'm thinking ivory linens with sage accents," I mentioned during a planning brunch. "Nathan would prefer pure white," Stephanie countered confidently. "He mentioned loving the clean look when we discussed it." "When did you discuss linens with Nathan?" I asked, stirring my coffee. "Oh, in passing," she replied, quickly changing the subject to centerpieces. These moments of presumed intimacy with my fiancé multiplied. Stephanie seemed to know Nathan's preferences on details I hadn't even discussed with him myself. When I mentioned this to my mother, she dismissed my concerns. "Your sister's finally showing some responsibility. Don't discourage her. She's probably just trying to make things perfect for you." 3 months before the wedding, I began noticing Stephanie constantly checking her phone during our planning sessions, smiling secretly at text messages. Whenever I asked who was texting, she'd vaguely mention friend or work stuff. Around the same time, Nathan started having unexpected client emergencies that required evening meetings. The red flags culminated one Tuesday afternoon when I came home early with a migraine. Opening our apartment door, I heard Stephanie's distinctive laugh from the kitchen. I found her perched on our counter, wineglass in hand, while Nathan leaned against the refrigerator, also drinking wine. They jumped apart when they saw me. "Becca, you're home early," Nathan said, his voice slightly higher than normal. "I brought over some flower samples," Stephanie explained, gesturing to a small envelope on the table that looked suspiciously untouched. "Nathan was just helping me decide since you weren't answering your phone." "My phone never rang," I said, pulling it from my purse to show no missed calls. "Oh, I must have dialed wrong." "Silly me," she laughed, gathering her things with unusual haste. After she left, Nathan became defensively affectionate, suggesting we order my favorite takeout and watch my preferred movies. His overcompensation only deepened my unease. "Is there something going on with you and Stephanie?" I finally asked as we sat on the couch, the movie playing unwatched.
"What? No."
"How could you even think that?" Nathan looked genuinely shocked. "She's your sister, Becca. And I love you. There's nothing happening." His denial seemed sincere, and I wanted desperately to believe him. With the wedding approaching and deposits paid, I convinced myself stress was making me paranoid. The bridal shower Stephanie organized was elaborate and picture-perfect, though I noticed she'd invited several of her own friends who barely knew me. At my bachelorette weekend in Nashville, she disappeared for hours on Saturday night, returning to our hotel suite at dawn claiming she'd met old friends. Most concerning was her insistence on planning Nathan's bachelor party despite this traditionally being the best man's responsibility. When I questioned this unusual arrangement, she brushed it off. "Todd's so busy with work, and I know all the best places in Chicago. It makes sense for me to help." My bridesmaid Amanda pulled me aside during wedding dress alterations. "Is everything okay with Stephanie? She's acting weird around Nathan. At your engagement party, I saw them whispering in the corner, and they stopped when I approached." 2 weeks before the wedding, I confronted Nathan again after finding an unfamiliar earring in our bedroom, small, gold, and definitely not mine. "It must be from the cleaning service," Nathan suggested, though we didn't have a cleaning service. When I pointed this out, he backtracked. "Maybe it's yours and you forgot about it? Or it could be Amanda's from when you all had wine here last month." His explanation made little sense, but his eyes held such earnest concern that I questioned my own memory. Was I becoming the stereotypical paranoid bride? The stress of planning a wedding while maintaining my executive position had left me exhausted and emotionally fragile. The night before our wedding, my mother and I shared a quiet moment in my hotel suite. "I always dreamed of this day for you," she said, adjusting my rehearsal dinner dress. "Nathan's a wonderful man. Your father and I couldn't be happier." I nearly confessed my suspicions then, but the joy in her eyes stopped me. Instead, I nodded and smiled, swallowing the knot in my throat. The morning of the wedding, chaos erupted when Stephanie arrived 45 minutes late for our hair and makeup session. "Traffic was insane," she explained, though the other bridesmaids who took the same route arrived on time. Throughout the morning preparations, Stephanie seemed unusually nervous, checking her phone constantly, drinking champagne too quickly, and disappearing to the bathroom repeatedly. When Amanda helped lace up my dress, I caught Stephanie staring at me in the mirror, an unreadable expression on her face. Despite everything, as I prepared to walk down the aisle toward Nathan, I made a conscious decision to embrace this day. Whatever doubts plagued me, I would address them after the honeymoon. Today would be perfect, even if I had to force it to be. The ceremony itself was everything I'd dreamed. Silver Lake Lodge looked magical with afternoon sunlight filtering through tall windows, illuminating arrangements of white roses and eucalyptus. String quartet music filled the air as 150 guests turned to watch me walk down the aisle on my father's arm. Nathan's face when he first saw me in my dress, a fitted lace gown with delicate beading, showed genuine awe. His eyes welled with tears, and in that moment, all my doubts seemed ridiculous. This man loved me. I could see it in every feature of his face. Our personalized vows made several guests stab at their eyes. When Nathan promised to always be honest and faithful, his voice cracked with emotion. We exchanged rings, shared our first kiss as husband and wife, and proceeded back down the aisle to cheers and applause. The cocktail hour flowed seamlessly into dinner in the lodge's grand ballroom, transformed with twinkling lights and greenery. Our first dance to At Last by Etta James felt magical, as did the father-daughter dance that followed. Nathan's mother cried happily watching us, while my parents beamed with pride from the head table. I barely noticed Stephanie during these moments, too caught up in the celebration. Only later would I realize she disappeared several times during the reception, returning with slightly smudged makeup and disheveled hair she claimed resulted from helping the coordinator. After the delicious four-course dinner, the speeches began. My father stood first, champagne in hand. When Rebecca was little, she used to say she wanted to marry someone kind and smart, he reminisced. "Nathan, you are exactly the man she described all those years ago. Welcome to our family, son." Nathan's best friend Todd followed with humorous stories about Nathan's college days and ended with a touching tribute to our relationship. As Todd returned to his seat, the DJ announced dinner service was complete and invited guests to enjoy the dessert buffet and dancing. That's when Stephanie unexpectedly grabbed the microphone. She wasn't scheduled to speak. We had agreed to keep formal speeches minimal. "Wait, I need to say something," she announced, slightly slurring her words. The room quieted out of politeness. "My big sister Rebecca has always been perfect," Stephanie began, swaying slightly. "Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect apartment. And now, perfect wedding." I tensed in my seat, sensing trouble in her tone. Nathan reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it reassuringly. "Growing up in Rebecca's shadow wasn't easy," Stephanie continued. "Always being compared, always falling short. But Rebecca never made me feel less than. She's the most generous person I know." The speech was taking an unexpectedly heartfelt turn, and I relaxed slightly. Perhaps I had misjudged her intentions. "Which is why what I'm about to say is so difficult." She paused dramatically, her eyes scanning the crowd before landing on me. "Rebecca, I know you'll eventually forgive me, because that's who you are. But everyone here should know the truth." The room grew utterly silent. Even the catering staff froze in place. I'm pregnant with Nathan's baby. 5 words that shattered everything. The announcement hung in the air like shards of glass. Someone gasped audibly. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her hand, splashing onto the white tablecloth. Time seemed to stop as every eye in the room turned to me, then Nathan, then back to me. Nathan jumped to his feet, knocking his chair backward. "That's a lie," he shouted, face draining of color. "Rebecca, that's not true. I swear to God." Stephanie stood defiantly, microphone still in hand. 3 months along, Nathan. Remember Chicago? Your bachelor party? Last week in your office? Should I continue? The room erupted in murmurs. My bridesmaids moved toward me protectively while Nathan's parents whispered frantically to each other. Through it all, I remained perfectly still, my hands folded neatly on the table before me, my expression carefully neutral despite the hurricane raging inside. Nathan approached me, reaching for my hands. "Becca, please. She's making this up." "I would never." I raised my hand to silence him, then slowly stood and smoothed my dress. The room gradually quieted as I walked deliberately toward Stephanie and extended my hand for the microphone. Confusion flashed across her face as she surrendered it. "Thank you all for coming to my wedding," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I apologize for this unexpected drama. But since we're sharing truths today, I have one of my own." I turned to face Stephanie and Nathan, who both stared at me with growing apprehension. "The thing is," I continued, "I already knew." The confusion on Stephanie's face was almost worth the public humiliation. She had expected tears, screaming, perhaps a dramatic exit. Instead, I stood calmly before our guests, microphone in hand, ready to reclaim my narrative. 3 days ago, I found everything, I explained, my voice echoing through the silent ballroom. Text messages, hotel receipts, photos. All of it. I described how Nathan had forgotten to log out of his email on our shared laptop. A notification appeared, a hotel confirmation for a room booked the previous week when Nathan claimed to be at a business dinner. Curiosity led me to discover hundreds of messages between him and Stephanie dating back 8 months, their content growing increasingly intimate. At first, I couldn't believe it. I continued. My sister and my fiancé. The 2 people I trusted most. So I did what any reasonable woman would do. I hired a private investigator. Gasps rippled through the room. Nathan's face drained of all remaining color. "I actually contacted Jackson Investigations 3 weeks ago when the evidence became impossible to ignore. The secret meetings, the unexplained absences, the way they both knew details they shouldn't. Yesterday, I received the final report with time-stamped photos, location data, and witness statements confirming their affair." I gestured to my bridesmaid Amanda, who approached with a manila envelope. From it, I withdrew several photographs showing Nathan and Stephanie entering hotel rooms, sharing intimate dinners, and kissing in his car. I didn't display these to the guests but made sure Nathan and Stephanie saw them clearly. "What you don't know, Stephanie," I said, turning to my sister, "is that I never actually filed our marriage license." Now it was Nathan's turn to look shocked. "What are you talking about? We signed it yesterday." "We signed a document that looked like a marriage license," I clarified. "The actual license is still sitting on my lawyer's desk and signed. Legally, Nathan, we are not married." I reached into the envelope again and pulled out another document. "This is an annulment form stating that the marriage was never consummated. I've already signed it. All it needs is your signature, and this entire charade disappears legally." Nathan's shock morphed into anger. "You tricked me? How could you?" "How could I?" My laugh held no humor. "That's rich coming from the man who's been sleeping with my sister for 8 months. Stephanie finally found her voice. "You knew? This whole time you knew? Then why go through with the wedding?" "Because you both needed to experience what real betrayal feels like," I replied simply. "You wanted to humiliate me today, Stephanie. You timed your announcement for maximum damage. But I refuse to give you that power." I turned to address our stunned guests. I apologize for involving you all in this deception. The truth is, I discovered their affair and planned this moment to reclaim my dignity. While there won't be a legal marriage to celebrate, I've paid for this reception, and I intend to enjoy it as a celebration of my liberation rather than my wedding. My father stood then, coming to stand beside me. Anyone who wishes to stay and support Rebecca is welcome. Anyone uncomfortable with the situation is free to leave, with our understanding. Nathan's parents approached, his mother's eyes filled with tears. Rebecca, we had no idea. We're so sorry. Don't apologize for him, I said gently. This isn't your fault. Stephanie attempted to speak again, stepping forward. It wasn't just an affair. We fell in love. You need to understand. Actually, I don't need to understand anything, I interrupted. What I need is for you to leave. You're fired as my sister and my maid of honor. The wedding coordinator, who had been watching in horror, whispered something to the DJ. Suddenly, upbeat music filled the room, breaking the tension slightly. I handed the microphone back and addressed my bridesmaids. I'm going to change out of this dress. Amanda, would you help me? 20 minutes later, I returned to the reception wearing an elegant blue evening dress I'd packed for our honeymoon departure. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. I had literally and figuratively changed my narrative. Many guests had chosen to stay, and they applauded as I entered. Several approached with hugs and words of support. As the reception cautiously resumed, I asked the coordinator to direct Nathan and Stephanie to the small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. It was time for a private conversation. The conference room felt suffocatingly small with the four of us inside. Me, Nathan, Stephanie, and the wedding coordinator, who quickly excused herself after ensuring we had privacy. Nathan paced like a caged animal while Stephanie sat rigidly in a leather chair, makeup streaked from crying. How long have you known? Nathan demanded, his charm replaced by defensive anger. Does it matter? I replied, remaining standing to maintain the psychological advantage. The better question is, how long have you been sleeping with my sister? Their eyes met briefly before Stephanie answered. It started at your engagement party. 8 months. While I'd been selecting flower arrangements and writing vase, they had been betraying me in the most intimate way possible. The night we celebrated our engagement? I clarified, remembering how Nathan had disappeared for nearly an hour during the party. Very classy. It wasn't planned, Nathan insisted. We were both drunk, talking about you actually. One thing led to another. Spare me the details, I interrupted.
What I want to know is why.
Why my sister, Nathan? And Stephanie, why the man I was going to marry? Stephanie's answer revealed everything about her character. You always had everything so easy, Rebecca. The perfect career, the perfect boyfriend. I just wanted something that was meant for you, just once.
Easy.
I laughed incredulously. I worked for everything I have. Nothing was handed to me. That's how you see it, she muttered. Nathan attempted a different approach, his voice softening. Becca, I made a terrible mistake. I do love you. The affair was just physical. It wasn't for me, Stephanie interjected, glaring at him. You said you loved me. You said you were going to leave her after the wedding. Their unified front crumbled as they turned on each other, revealing contradictory promises and plans. Nathan claimed the affair was ending. Stephanie insisted they had discussed a future together. As they argued, a crucial detail emerged. Wait, I interrupted. Are you actually pregnant, Stephanie? Her hesitation told me everything. I might be. The test was inconclusive. Show me the test, I demanded. I threw it away, she mumbled, avoiding my eyes. Nathan grabbed her arm. You told me you were sure. You showed me a positive test. Stephanie's confession came in a small voice. I bought a positive test online. I thought if you believed I was pregnant, you'd leave her for me. The look of relief on Nathan's face quickly turned to anger. You manipulated me? All this drama for nothing. For nothing? I echoed. Whether she's pregnant or not doesn't change what you both did. The door opened then, revealing my parents. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying, while my father's face was set in stone. We need to talk to our daughters, my father said firmly. Nathan, I think you should leave. Mr. Parker, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain, my father interrupted. You betrayed my daughter in the worst possible way with her own sister. Get out of my sight before I forget I'm a gentleman. For the first time in our lives, my parents didn't rush to Stephanie's defense. As Nathan slunk out, my mother approached Stephanie. How could you do this to your sister? She asked, her voice breaking. Mom, you don't understand. Don't. My mother held up her hand. Don't make excuses. What you did was unforgivable. My father turned to me, his eyes softening. Rebecca, we support whatever you want to do now. If you want to leave, we'll make your excuses to the guests.
I'm staying, he replied firmly.
I paid for this party, and I'm going to enjoy it. But I want Stephanie removed. I'll handle it, my father nodded, turning to Stephanie. Let's go. I'll drive you home. You're taking her side? Stephanie looked genuinely shocked. After all these years, you're finally choosing Rebecca over me? We're choosing basic human decency, my mother replied. Something you seem to have forgotten. As Stephanie was escorted out by my father, I noticed the security guards I'd hired watching discreetly. I'd arranged them specifically for this possibility, hoping I wouldn't need them, but prepared nonetheless. Meanwhile, guests observed Nathan leaving the venue, his shoulders hunched in defeat. Some of his friends followed, looking confused and embarrassed. Others, particularly those who knew both of us well, chose to stay. My college roommate Melissa found me as I returned to the reception. Rebecca, I don't even know what to say. Are you really okay? For the first time since the revelation, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. No, I admitted, voice cracking. But I will be. She hugged me tightly. What are you going to do about the honeymoon? All those deposits. I thought for a moment, then smiled through my tears. Want to go to Bali with me next week? All expenses paid. Melissa's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely. I need my best friend right now, not a lying cheater. We returned to the reception, where I took the microphone once more. Thank you all for staying. This isn't the celebration I planned, but it's the one I need. Today marks not the beginning of a marriage, but the start of my new life. One built on self-respect and truth. So please, enjoy the food, the drinks, and the dancing. Today we celebrate authenticity. The party continued with renewed energy, many guests approaching to offer support or share their own stories of overcoming betrayal. What had been designed as a wedding reception transformed into something more meaningful, a community of people rallying around someone who chose dignity over deception. 5 days after what should have been my wedding day, Melissa and I boarded a flight to Bali. The irony of using my honeymoon tickets for a friendship trip wasn't lost on me, but it felt like the perfect reclamation of what was meant to be a celebration of love. Just a different kind of love, the supportive, unconditional friendship that had sustained me through the worst days of my life. Our oceanfront villa in Ubud became my sanctuary for 2 weeks. While Melissa explored the markets and temples, I often sat on our private balcony, journaling my thoughts and feelings. The physical distance from Michigan created emotional space to process everything. I don't know who I'm more angry at, I wrote on our 3rd day. Nathan for betraying my trust, Stephanie for betraying our sisterhood, or myself for missing so many obvious signs. How did I not see what was happening right in front of me? The journal became my confidant, capturing raw emotions I couldn't express even to Melissa. Pages filled with anger gave way to grief, then gradually to reflection. By the end of our stay, I was writing about rebuilding rather than revenge. Our last evening in Bali, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I made a promise to myself. This experience will refine me, not define me. Returning home meant facing reality. Nathan had moved most of his things out of our apartment while I was gone, leaving behind a terse note about forwarding his mail. Cooper, our golden retriever, greeted me with enthusiastic licks, blissfully unaware of how our family had fractured. At least you're still loyal, I whispered into his fur. The practical matters came first. I contacted a realtor about selling the apartment. Too many memories haunted those rooms. My lawyer confirmed the marriage had been successfully invalidated, requiring no divorce proceedings since we were never legally married. The wedding gifts were returned with personal notes explaining the situation as tactfully as possible. What I hadn't anticipated was the social media fallout. Someone had recorded Stephanie's announcement and my response on their phone. The clips spread rapidly, first among wedding guests, then to their connections, and eventually to viral status on multiple platforms. Strangers began sending messages of support. Women shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Several relationship podcasts invited me as a guest to discuss maintaining dignity through heartbreak. While I declined most requests, I recognized an opportunity to transform my pain into purpose. I started a private blog, Recovering Rebecca, documenting my healing journey without naming names or sharing specific details. The authenticity resonated with readers, creating a community of women supporting each other through similar experiences. Professionally, I threw myself into work, using the structure and challenges to distract from personal turmoil. My boss, Jennifer, noticed my increased focus and offered an unexpected opportunity. We're launching a new division focused on authentic marketing to women, she explained during a private lunch. After seeing how you handled that wedding situation with such grace under extreme pressure, I can't think of anyone better to lead it. The promotion came with a significant salary increase and creative control over campaigns, exactly the professional challenge I needed. Therapy became another cornerstone of my recovery.
Dr.
Marshall helped me work through the complex emotions of dual betrayal. You're mourning multiple losses, she explained during an early session. The loss of your relationship with Nathan, your relationship with Stephanie, and your vision of what your life would be. It's natural to feel overwhelmed. Family gatherings became complicated negotiations. My parents tried maintaining relationships with both daughters, often resulting in awkward arrangements where we attended separate holiday celebrations. Their attempts to broker peace between us met with firm resistance from me. I'm not ready, I told my mother when she suggested a mediated conversation 3 months after the wedding. Forgiveness might be possible someday, but reconciliation requires trust, and that's been completely destroyed. Nathan made multiple attempts to contact me. Calls, texts, even a handwritten letter delivered with flowers to my office. Each message contained some variation of "I made a terrible mistake and I miss you." I responded to none of them. Stephanie proved more persistent. She showed up at my workplace, sent daily emails, and even enlisted mutual friends to plead her case. Her messages oscillated between defensive justification and desperate apology, revealing her continued inability to truly understand the depth of her betrayal. 6 months after the non-wedding, I purchased a modern condo in a downtown high-rise, completely different from the suburban apartment Nathan and I had shared. The fresh start included new furniture, new routines, and even new friends made through a community volunteer program. "This place is so you," Amanda commented during my housewarming gathering, which I'd kept small and intimate. "It's strong and elegant, just like its owner." Creating new traditions helped reclaim holidays and milestones. Instead of dwelling on what should have been our first Christmas as a married couple, I organized a gift drive for a women's shelter. Rather than mourning what would have been our first anniversary, I treated myself to a photography class I'd always wanted to take. During one of these classes, I reconnected with Michael Gardner, a college acquaintance who'd attended the same university but ran in different circles. Now a successful architectural photographer, he remembered me from a business ethics class we'd shared senior year. "I always admired your principled arguments in Professor Wilson's debates," he mentioned as we adjusted camera settings for a night photography exercise. "You never took the easy position, even when it meant standing alone." Michael's friendship developed naturally and without pressure. We shared a love of art films, spicy food, and early morning hikes with Cooper. Unlike my relationship with Nathan, which had accelerated quickly, this connection grew slowly, building on genuine friendship and transparent communication. "I heard about what happened at your wedding," he admitted 6 weeks into our friendship. Everyone at the firm was talking about it after the video went viral. For what it's worth, I thought you handled it with incredible dignity. His honesty was refreshing after months of people carefully avoiding the topic. Thank you. It wasn't my finest moment, but it was definitely one of my most authentic. On what would have been my first wedding anniversary, I performed a private ceremony of release. Taking the wedding dress I'd preserved but never wore again, I donated it to an organization providing formal wear to disadvantaged students for prom. My engagement ring funded a scholarship for young women pursuing marketing degrees. These symbolic acts helped me close one chapter and open another. The woman who had stood frozen in shock at her wedding reception was becoming someone stronger, someone who understood her worth wasn't tied to others' loyalty. 2 years after the wedding that wasn't, I stood at the podium of the Michigan Women in Business Awards, accepting recognition for the successful marketing campaign my team had developed for domestic violence awareness. The irony wasn't lost on me. My personal trauma had ultimately led to professional triumph. Authenticity isn't just good marketing, I told the audience. It's good living. When we embrace our true stories, even the painful chapters, we connect with others in meaningful ways. Looking out at the crowd, I spotted Michael in the third row, his proud smile warming me from across the room. After 15 months of friendship and another 9 of dating, our relationship had developed into something I'd never experienced before, a partnership built on complete honesty and mutual respect. My relationship with my parents had evolved significantly. After initial attempts to maintain equal relationships with both daughters, they eventually acknowledged the fundamental difference between Stephanie's actions and my responses. While they never completely severed ties with her, they established clear boundaries about family gatherings and discussions. "We failed you both in different ways," my father admitted during a difficult conversation. "We enabled Stephanie's worst behaviors by never holding her accountable, and we took your strength for granted, assuming you didn't need the same attention and affirmation." This acknowledgement helped heal wounds I'd carried since childhood, allowing us to build a more authentic relationship. Stephanie and Nathan's relationship had imploded spectacularly just 3 months after the wedding. Without the thrill of secrecy and forbidden attraction, they quickly discovered they had little in common beyond their betrayal. According to mutual friends, their breakup involved public screaming matches and social media warfare. Nathan relocated to California for a fresh start, occasionally sending holiday cards with generic messages that I promptly recycled. Stephanie remained in Michigan but moved to a different city, cycling through jobs and relationships with her characteristic instability. Her attempts to reconcile continued, evolving from desperate pleas to more measured approaches. On the second anniversary of the wedding that wasn't, she sent a letter that showed the first genuine signs of growth. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "What I did was unforgivable. But I want you to know I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I hurt the one person who always supported me. My jealousy and insecurity don't excuse my actions, but they help explain a pattern I'm working to break. I miss my sister, but more importantly, I regret causing you pain. While I appreciated the self-awareness, I maintained firm boundaries. We occasionally exchanged brief texts on birthdays or major holidays, but our relationship would never return to what it had been." Some betrayals permanently alter the landscape of relationships, and this was one of them. The most profound changes occurred within me. Professional success brought satisfaction, but the internal growth meant more. I learned to trust my instincts, to recognize red flags rather than rationalize them away. I discovered the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, the former being something I could do for my own peace, the latter requiring rebuilt trust that might never be possible. Michael and I developed our relationship deliberately, with open discussions about expectations and boundaries. When he proposed after 18 months of dating, he did so with full awareness of my past. "I know trust doesn't come easily to you anymore," he said, holding a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I'm not asking for blind faith. I'm asking for partnership, building something together day by day, with honesty as our foundation." Standing in my living room, Cooper watching curiously from his bed, I felt none of the reservation that should have accompanied this moment. Instead, a calm certainty settled over me. Yes, I answered. But this time, we're eloping. We shared a laugh that acknowledged the past without being defined by it. My journey from betrayal to rebuilding taught me that life's worst moments often contain the seeds of transformation. The public humiliation I feared would destroy me instead revealed my resilience. The loss of relationships I thought essential created space for connections that truly nourished me. Most importantly, I learned that genuine strength isn't about preventing cracks in your foundation, but about how you rebuild after the earthquake. The structure you create after devastation can be more authentic and beautiful than what stood before. To those of you watching who have experienced betrayal, remember this. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's loyalty. Your story doesn't end with their chapter. You get to write the next pages, and they can be more authentic and powerful than anything that came before. If my story resonated with you, please share in the comments how you've overcome betrayal or rebuilt trust in your own life. Each experience is unique, but the courage to move forward connects us all. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of resilience, and like this video if it gave you hope or perspective. Thank you for witnessing my journey. May it help illuminate your own path forward, whatever challenges you face. Remember, the most beautiful stories often include the darkest chapters, but they don't end there.